I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 4th, 2024 meeting. Be looking for the council to go into closed session pursuant to 143, 318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the council, which hereby is acknowledged pursuant to 143, 318.11A5 to establish or to instruct the public body staff or negotiating agents concerning the position to be taken on or behalf of the public body in negotiating, the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, exchange, or lease, or the amount of compensation and other material terms of an employment contract or proposed employment contract. Also pursuant to 143, 318.11A6 to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, condition of appointment, or conditions of initial employment of an individual public officer or employee or prospective public officer or employee, or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against a individual public officer or employee. Do I have a motion from council to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion before we go into closed session? All in favor? Aye. I'd like to welcome everybody out. Do I have a motion from council to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you everybody for coming out for the March 4th, 2024 meeting. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time.
I do
Mr.
not.
Larkin, Mr. Corbett?
No, sir.
Mr. Hargrave?
No.
Mike? Mr. Nairn?
No, sir.
All right. Moving on next, approvement and a draft agenda. Agenda. All right, we got some things that's come up, guys. The applicant for the rezoning map amendment is requesting the application be withdrawn. That'll be old business J1, so we'll be removing that.
Sea Villa.
C Village. It's removed.
Yes.
C Village.
Ms.
Village
Fong, she
removed.
has withdrawn her application. Agenda item 1, Planning Board UDO rewrite activity report will also be removed as we don't have that tonight. So please remove both of those guys or look forward once we approve this agenda to moving it. Additions we need to have old business J1, consideration of awarding the contract for the 29th Street, 34th Street, and 37th Street walkway replacement repairs totaling $813,200.52. Also looking to add agenda item C1, consideration of approval of the Palm Cove MOA regarding dredging grants. Also adding C2, Towns of Seaside LLC emergency access deed and agreement. This item is being moved from K2 to allow Attorney Richardson to participate. Does any member of council have anything else as far as the agenda goes that needs to be removed or added or anything?
I do not.
Larkin?
No.
Corbett? Hargraves?
No.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, action discussing resulting from the closed session. Mr. Lawyer, you got the floor.
There was none.
All right. Next up will be C1.
Regarding the Palm Cove memorandum.
Palm Cove MOA. Go ahead with that one, Mr. Lawyer.
Mr. Mayor, members of
Excuse me a
council.
second. Do you want to just make it clear, Sea Village is not there? Anybody wants to leave could leave?
They heard me. They just want to sit here and listen to what
Okay.
else down.
No, they're going to go, but there's stuff.
But if anybody wants to leave, you're welcome to go.
Thank you for listening to us.
Yep. Yep. You're welcome.
Stan, if anybody's in this room here, they're welcome to come over here. Carry on, sir.
Go ahead and proceed.
Thank
Mr. Mayor, members of council, over the past several months, this memorandum of agreement that's being proposed by the Palm Cove Owners Association, Inc., with that of the town of Sunset Beach has been discussed previously. Mr. Ressler, who represents the Palm Cove entity, is here tonight, and he can answer any questions that you have. Coming into tonight, Mr. Ressler and I were in agreement with the terms of the memorandum of agreement. It's my understanding there's a couple of things you wish to ask Mr. Ressler and or any Palm Cove official that is here. And I don't know if you want me to shepherd those questions for Mr. Ressler and his client to answer. I've taken notes. I can certainly do so if you'd like.
I'd be comfortable with that.
Yes.
All right.
Fine, you're the one who makes the big buck. Go with it.
So, yeah, you may want to come up. May I call you Todd?
Yes, please.
All right.
Good evening.
This is
everyone.
Todd
Yeah.
Ressler from Kilpatrick
Townsend.
Townsend, who represents Palm Cove Owners Association, Inc. Question was, as you know, or you probably do know, the town has Moffitt and Nickel as its engineering consulting on its current dredging project, and the town wants to make sure that it would be able to continue to have Moffett and Nickel provide its consulting advice with respect to any dredging that's submitted for approval for the shallow draft fund. And if it did get approved, we want to make sure that any dredging that's happening that Palm Cove is seeking is not going to have unintended consequences from the engineering perspective. That's not explicitly addressed in the MOA. They may want that addressed in the MOA, but what I'm hoping to do tonight is hear from you, see if you have any objections to that, and we could, if we get to the point tonight, we can make a motion that's contingent upon putting additional matters in the MOA that you and I are fine with, that the mayor would sign off on if we get to that point. So as to the consultant aspect, what say you?
First of all, I want to understand the question, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and obviously all of your consideration on this MOA. I know it's been a long process. As far as Moffett and Nickel goes, are you requesting that they be made the consultant that oversees the project?
No.
So that will go out to bid. So obviously they may be selected, they may not be, and might be another consultant. Are you asking that Palm Cove agree to pay Moffett Nichols fees? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. And in fact, as maybe a point of clarity, I'd be a lot more comfortable if Moffett Nichols continue to represent the town of Sunset Beach on our existing dredging program. And the concerns that I personally would have is that the two projects that don't conflict with each other in purpose or in results. But I'd be one of five. I'd be uncomfortable with Moffett Nichols also representing Palm Cove HOA.
We had no
at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, we had no intention of that. Obviously, the town will be responsible for selecting the contractor, subject to the public, solicitation of bids. I'd want to confer with my client, but I don't think we have any objections to Moffett and Nickel continuing to represent the town on the existing dredging project. I mean, they're the consultant on that project, and we have no objection. If there are going to be significant fees from Moffett and Nickel reviewing contracts or technical documents, we would want to have an understanding of what those would be. Right now, my understanding of the town's administrative fees would be clerical, would be Grady's time. Those we were aware of. We did not consider the town incurring additional consulting fees on top of the consultant that would be overseeing this project.
But it says the town is will be responsible for administration of the project, and then it goes mining deeper into it. It makes reference to the project manager, and that the project manager would be the town.
Right.
So,
Understanding of the project manager would be a consultant that consults with the town.
okay.
That will be the town's selection. I mean, are you saying that Moffett and Nickel will become the project manager?
No.
Okay.
No. And I wanted to make sure that that the project manager would be representing your dredging project.
Correct. Yes. So the project manager would be overseeing this project, this Palm Cove dredging project, but would report to the town.
Mhm.
I mean, and then the town would then consult with Palm Cove.
I would have no idea as to what the fees would be from Moffett Nichols representing the town, as representing the town's interests, if you will.
Mhm.
Just because, I mean, obviously engineers are very honorable. I'm one. But you have an obligation to best represent your client, and you know where I'm going.
I'm confused, and I'm confused. As I read the MOA, it says
Where are you reading?
Section 2.3, administration of the project. The town will be responsible for the administration of the project. The project manager shall be selected by the town, and the project manager will manage the project on a day-to-day basis on behalf of the town. It says project manager is our guy.
Correct.
Yeah. It sounded different from what you were saying.
Well, that's really what I meant, is that
Yeah.
it seemed to me that the project manager, as identified in here, would be somebody that would be provided and supportive of the town.
Correct.
but they'd be
Yeah.
managing this overall project.
Correct.
And that would be one of the costs that Palm Cove would be responsible for covering. That work associated by the program manager with the Palm Cove dredging project.
The town would be Palm Cove would be responsible for the local share, 25%. 75%, assuming it was approved by the shallow draft fund, would be paid by the state. But, okay. So the project manager is selected by the town to oversee the project.
Right.
If this project is approved by the shallow draft fund, 75% of those fees of the project manager would be paid by the state. Palm Cove would pay the other 25%. Let me make it clear, the town under this MOA would not be responsible for any costs associated with this project.
And that includes town staff, time,
Town
to be
staff,
accounted for,
Brady's
our
time.
legal time.
Correct. But this is the first I've heard of Moffett and Nickel possibly, if that's what I'm hearing correctly. We were not aware of that.
Well, we haven't selected a project manager.
Well, but I stated very clearly in one of our prior meetings that my consternation is that I want to make sure that this project, Palm Cove, does not adversely affect, that a big picture person be brought in. And we have Moffett Nichols already here, and they are intimately involved in our dredging project.
Mm-hmm.
They know the area, they know the tides, they know the currents. And we would just want to make sure that the scope of the design, that the contractor or whoever would be selected in a competitive bid process wasn't trying to do something that would adversely affect what we already have.
Well, why wouldn't Moffett and Nickel be your project manager?
I would rather have Moffett Nichols focus solely on the town of Sunset Beach and our existing dredging project. Now, maybe I could be easily convinced that that's not reasonable,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'd want them to have tunnel focus.
But I don't think that's a decision that we have to make right now.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to,
Yeah.
sorry, my name's Cindy Levine. I'm one of the homeowners in Palm Cove.
Hi.
I was the past president. Now I'm just a homeowner. Thank you for having us tonight. I want to start with that. I want to somehow, there's lots of history between Palm Cove and the town. This project is the town's project, not Palm Cove's project. We're paying for it because obviously there's erosion that's on our shoreline, but I wish that we could flip the switch a little bit of us versus you and us versus them. This is going to help the navigation of Tubbs Inlet. It's going to obviously it's going to help the erosion on our shoreline, but it's still the town's project. You're in charge of it. That's very clear in the MOA. We're just paying for it.
If I could add one thing, I think Mr. Corbett has hit this on the head, that we don't need to make the decision right now who the project manager will be. That will go out to public bid. It's the town's decision. And as far as concerns about what this additional dredging, how it will impact the existing dredging, that will all be done in the environmental review process. This project will need to go through a environmental study, and one of those things that it will study is impacts on existing dredging. So that will be addressed.
We tried very carefully in the initial dredging program because we knew how sensitive and how, I don't want to say volatile, but how, I had a word for that.
Dynamic.
Dynamic. The Tubbs Inlet is. And our shallow draft dredging program was just for that, just for shallow draft dredging. It initially was going to connect with the ICW. That was not what ended up happening. But the scope of the work to deal with the Palm Cove, which is your citizens, you're part of Sunset Beach, your taxpayers, every bit as much as anybody else is up here or in the audience.
Thank you.
But the situation there is different, and it's a Conservation Reserve 1 zoning, which provides, I don't want to say buyer beware, but it provides certain dynamics that other citizens and other parts of our island here aren't as subject to. So that's
Yeah, and I
that's
don't-
why there's caution.
I don't know if you were a councilman when we initially started.
I was
this
on the
whole-
Board of Adjustment when you all got approved,
well,
put in there.
I mean,
Limits.
when we started having the conversation about this project, one of the first asks from the town was for us to do a scoping project, and all of the alphabet groups were
Sure.
part of that, including the mayor of Ocean Isle Beach. So we're very cognizant, and we care very much about the shoreline and the beach and the, and Ocean Isle would never want to do anything to the detriment.
And I apologize for maybe even referencing that you guys aren't part of Sunset Beach. I mean, you are certainly. And it's Mr. Nern brought up a couple of meetings ago how you guys are citizens and we need to, be very sensitive to your needs there too as well.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Well, you understand, it's not us against them. When we got our dredging project approved, it took years. And the one thing we wanted to make perfectly clear was that the only ones that would be paying are the affected property owners. And we would expect the same from you.
Yeah, we have that's understood.
Was there any more discussion on this point, or shall I move on to point number 2?
Carry on.
Go on.
If Palm Cove, if the town gets approval for the shallow draft fund and the dredging goes forward, dredging gets done, what then happens with respect to future maintenance issues in terms of this MOA?
You talking about maintenance dredging?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the way I would look at it would be that we would have to enter into another MOA, that there would be an agreement, whatever that time period is, if it's 5 years from now, if that channel needed to be dredged again, we would go through a very similar process where an MOA would be negotiated. Maybe it looks the same as this one, maybe it looks different. The town would have the opportunity to agree to be the applicant again to the shallow draft fund. Palm Cove would have to consider, the same terms. So we would have to go through a similar MOA process. I just don't know what that MOA would look like.
Any questions from council on that? Next one was, what about the lead up cost by Sunset Beach staff and my office leading up to tonight? Are you in agreement with paying and reimbursing the town for those amounts?
I believe that the MOA says that we would be responsible for all reasonable and necessary costs of the town. I would consider those costs to be included, but obviously we would have to review the invoices before I can give you an approval on it.
Yeah. Well, our concern was it didn't precisely say that in the MOU. That's what it appears to be, a reasonable assumption. We just wanted to hear you say that.
We would not object to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions from council on that? Next one would be, when would you anticipate the Palm Cove deposit being started? Would it be, if we got you a bill of cost tomorrow, whatever that amount is, you would pay it? That's one thing, but what about with respect to moving forward and the cost being incurred? When do you anticipate that sort of 125% deposit or other financial assurance, which kind of ties into the last question I have, is what are your examples of financial assurances that would be separate from a cash deposit if you wanted to go that route?
The
Yep.
way I read the MOA is that it is a phased approach. There are a number of contracts that will need to be negotiated and entered into by the town. Before the town has to commit to signing a contract, Palm Cove would be responsible for depositing 125% of that contract into an escrow account, which the town would then draw from to pay those fees. The agreement does provide for alternative forms of financial assurance. So if if Palm Cove decided not to put 125%, of that contract into an escrow account, in my mind, it would be a letter of credit or some other form of financial assurance. But I think the way the MOA reads is that it has to be acceptable to the town. So ultimately, it's the town's decision. If the town says, no, we want 125% escrow account, I believe that's what it would be. But again, I don't have the agreement in front of me, but that's what I recall it saying.
I think from my understanding too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, this is, as you know, with the dredging project, this is not going to happen overnight. This is years down the road, probably, of actually getting to be able to move sand. And so, at least in our estimation, it's at least a year of surveying and testing and doing all of those things
Permits.
and permitting and thank you. And I believe the HOA is fine with doing the 125% cash escrow for all of that. The big concern that we had is the big money maker is the dredging. And so that was something that we wanted to, be able to at least have conversations about of having all of that money upfront.
So a kind of finer point on that is the period that we're in now, the expenses that the town is undergoing, and then when you put your application for the grant in, and the town has to go through their process, our staff work, our legal work, our engineering work, if that comes in, to make sure it goes in and meets all the requirements to go in for the grant. That's part of the I'm calling that the upfront cost. And I didn't quite hear clearly that money would go into an escrow account to cover that.
I mean, I don't think the MOA has addressed that particular issue. And again, I'd have to consult with my client, but I would think that they would be agreeable that if an estimate was provided by the town, what your soft costs would be, we could come to an agreement before the town is committed to submitting that application. We put the money into an escrow account. I think those fees hopefully will be very minor compared to the fees we're looking at for the overall project. So I'd hate for that to hold this up.
You would either do that, you could do that, or you could just pay the bill of cost, assuming you don't have any disagreement with it, and we wait to start the escrow and the deposit of the 125%. Once we get to that point of that phase, when a contract is ready to be executed and you see the cost on there, that's when you turn to them and say, all right, before we sign this contract, you need to deposit that money into the escrow.
That part is very clear.
Yeah.
It's until the town submits the application, the work that goes into that. That's the part.
If the town wants assurance, I think the town could hold up submitting the application until we come to an agreement on paying those upfront costs.
That was what I was trying to say. Okay. We wouldn't submit anything until you were satisfied and staff had been paid for those costs.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Does council have any other questions regarding this proposed memorandum of agreement? That's all I had on my notes.
I've spoken.
That covered mine.
I've worn you out.
I guess the question needs to be called as to whether there's a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement.
Is there a motion on the floor? Pleasure of this council to approve this as written, or you want to wait till they add in whatever the last little bit you're going to add in?
Do you
What's
see
y'all's pleasure?
Grady, do you see anything that needs to be added in?
I do not. Okay. But if you all see something you'd like me to insert, I can certainly do so.
We've heard of the assurances.
And my concern still stands. I just want to make sure that this dredging program, which is a different focus, does not have a negative impact on what we've already accomplished. And that's why I wanted somebody like Moffitt Nichols to be involved at the HOA's expense to be that second party review, if you will.
So on that aspect, if you're wanting it to, Moffitt and Nickel could end up being your project manager, but if you're saying that it might not be, and you want to keep them out as kind of the overseer of everything from the town's perspective, then I think that's something that Mr. Ressler and I would need to address better in the memorandum of agreement.
And I agree. To me, that would be paying an engineer twice. If Moffitt and Nickel was not the project manager, Palm Cove would essentially be paying two coastal engineers.
You're right.
And that is a concern to have an open checkbook on that. So, we would have to discuss that if that's something that you're concerned about.
Well, does anybody
Mr.
else on
Mayor,
council share my concerns?
No.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
I have a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we accept the MOA with Palm Cove for the dredging project.
Second.
Got a second? Any discussion? Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll vote aye.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate it.
y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, C2. This is the addition of the town at Seaside.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, not to steal Chad's thunder. Actually, I'm going to shut up and let you have all the thunder
I was
in the
going to let
world.
you go. I was just going to prompt Alan to pull this up. So the request, I'm going to let Grady fill in the blanks with this one. Him and Susan have worked a very long and diligent time on this. This got started with H&H Homes coming to me and saying we'd like to put a cul-de-sac here. The original preliminary plat did not have a cul-de-sac. On this image where I'm showing you right now, it was a connection. It was a connection into Sunset Creek Way, which I do have the fire chief here. Anything over a certain amount of units, which I think we ended up being 100. It's 100 units, requires 2 entrances into a subdivision. That is in the fire code. That is in the North Carolina State Fire Code. So originally when this plat was approved back in 2019, there was 2 entrances. And then at some point there was an agreement, a third-party agreement, if I'm stating that right, Grady, between a third partner into an easement to allow Sunset Creek Way to be used as part of that second easement. And that agreement was taken off the table between the developer and that easement or property owner. Since then, when this came to a final plat and putting this on paper and carving this out, I had to tell the applicant, you can't just create a cul-de-sac there. You've got to keep that second entrance. You just can't have one entrance, which led us into me contacting our attorney, they're contacting their attorney, and it getting to the point where it's been really hashed out over the past, 6 months, Grady, roughly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the image. This is the plat that will be, once everything is hashed out, will be signed by the town and recorded. Mr. Corbett asked me to put this together along, and then this is some looking at an aerial from high above where this is. You see Sunset Creek Way, and then there you see the backside of the development. You do see the cul-de-sac coming into focus there, and then I have a more focused of the cul-de-sac there. Well, it won't stay a cul-de-sac. It will be that. It does meet fire code. I've already confirmed that with myself and the fire chief, but there will also be a connection there into Sunset Creek Way. The town will have an emergency access easement to allow that. There will be a siren activated gate at that property line, and it will meet the minimum standards of the North Carolina Fire Code for 2 entrances for this subdivision to be able to move forward with more than 100 units. And I'll turn it back over to Grady.
I don't really have anything to add. I mean, this is something that's been flushed out to make sure that the town is not going to get exposed to liability for using an emergency access easement, and making sure that the party that's giving us that easement right has the lawful ability to do so. So it involves Sunset Commons, and it involves Seaside Homes, or H&H as the developer, to give us those rights and make sure it's documented on the Register of Deeds office.
Me? Am I
Mr.
next?
Larkin, sure.
I'm the goat today, so and it's not the greatest of all time either. The concern I had, or at least it seemed like we were making a big deal out of a obligation that a developer would have to provide on their own sufficient access and egress based upon the number of units they have. And this could have been accomplished without this emergency siren activated gate that involved, it made it more complicated because it involves not only the village at Seaside, but also Sunset Creek Commons. Sunset Creek Commons is not within the town of Sunset Beach. It's in the county, da-da-da-da-da. So it makes it complicated. Our attorney has made me better understand the reason for the complexities here. But I still look at it as we've spent a lot of money that I believe was probably, was the developer's obligation to pay. And I'd like to see that at least considered. I mean, it's been considerable amount of time of you, not to mention our attorney, to come up with an agreement that just makes the developer able to develop this property the way that they want. But I would not,
Yeah,
I'm not going to hold it up.
I mean, at the end of the day, they were asking the town to take actions to enable it to develop the property the way they were wanting it to be developed. And so it came to us as an emergency easement, whether that was possible. Yes, it's possible if it's done correctly. The fire chief was okay with it. Then the question would be, the developer needed to go about securing the proper rights to be able to effectively give the town the ability to access it. Did that enable the developer to get more lots, buildable lots? Probably.
Which isn't a bad thing.
I wasn't involved in that aspect of it. It was asked whether or not we could do an emergency easement, and I said yes, so long as we do it right. And involved two parties and some predecessors in title and some issues of record that we needed to get straightened out. It took a lot more effort than originally anticipated.
Is there a reason, a downside for approving this? Is there a reason we should not approve this?
From a legal standpoint, there's no downside. It did take more effort and time than anticipated originally.
It's a good thing for emergency services to have this there.
Yeah.
It's a good plan. It's a good engineered solution.
May I make a motion, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Corbett, if I may, if you deny this, then that doesn't give them a second entrance, and ultimately you would not allow them to move forward with more than 100 units or 50 lots since they're duplexes.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the emergency access agreement, the settlement agreement, and the deed of emergency access easement.
And to authorize the mayor to execute that instrument for recording.
And authorize the mayor to execute that instrument for recording.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Do I have any discussion? Go ahead, sir.
They will be responsible for maintaining that alarm gate.
Yeah, it's clear in the agreement. Yes.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Mayor, is there anything else council wishes for me to
Lord,
participate
no.
in?
No, cut the clock off and take off.
You'll have a good night.
Thank you.
We're going to be moving on to general council discussion. Does any member of council have anything that they need to discuss?
Negative.
No, sir.
Charlie, you got anything, sir?
No.
Pete, you got anything?
I do not.
Moving on next, public hearing. This is a public hearing for the lighting text amendment. Do I have a motion? I don't think I need to read this because this is.
Yeah, just a motion to go into.
Do I have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Would anyone like to speak from the public in regards to the lighting text amendment? One more time. Anybody like to go with the lighting text amendment? Seems everybody must be okay with it. Do I have a motion from council to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, public comments on agenda items one. If anyone has any comments on agenda items only, you're more than welcome to come up right now. You have 3 minutes, please. Please state your name and your physical address. Sure. Your address.
It's Sean Arnold, and SeanArnold, 101 Planters Ridge Drive here in Sunset Beach. I had a question. I was trying to catch Mr. Richardson before he goes, but in the minutes, it talks about the motions that were made in regards to Mr. Richardson and Miss Anglin working on getting the HR position filled, and also looking for the mentor, more or less, for her. I just want to know what the status of that is. So there was.
If it's in the meeting minutes, it is. Because the meeting minutes are a consent agenda. Right. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So basically, it says a motion was heard for Town Attorney Richardson to assist the Town Administrator in the process of defining an HR position, identifying and hiring an HR position to support the town's human resource policies. I'm just kind of curious to find out what the status of that is. And then also, I wanted to bring up, in regards, during that same time frame, was also mentioned that a motion was heard to insert the Richardson and the town administrator would consult with UNC School of Government, the Cape Fear Council of Government, and the League of Municipalities to identify a retired town administrator with experience to assist the town administrator and other department heads. Where is the status of that also?
Well, we're not supposed to answer questions.
Yeah,
here,
exactly. I know you're
but-
not, but I'm just asking for that to be brought up.
Okay.
And the last thing I want to bring up, and while I'm just standing here, this is just, it kind of falls under dredging. 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, I was down in the park. Trucks were being loaded there at Bill's, and they were coming up 179. One particular truck came away from Bill's, and he was losing this product out of the back of the truck pretty heavily. He came up 179 and turned into Sea Trail Community. At the stop sign at Clubhouse and Maples, he lost a bunch of debris, comes out of the back of the truck. The same thing at both stop signs at Crooked Gully, and then again at the traffic light, turning right onto 179, losing a product again. I don't know how much that goes on. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, but it was without a doubt coming out of the back of a truck coming from Bill. So I just want to make sure we are not going to let that continue as we go forward. The bridge was just recently swept, and there is a lot of debris and muck that has been built up on the side of the roadway. And I think that's something we really need to kind of keep an eye on, because that is getting out of hand. And the bridge, the state shouldn't be spending a lot of time and effort continuously sweeping the bridge like they have been doing. So I just want to bring that forward. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, you can check with our dredging people on that. Thank you.
Anyone else on agenda items only? All right. Last chance. All right, moving on to consent agenda. January 25th, 2024 special meeting minutes. January 26th, 2024 special meeting minutes. January 29th, 2024 special meeting minutes. January 31st, 2024 special meeting minutes. February 13th, 2024 special meeting minutes. February the 5th, 2024 first regular meeting minutes. February 26th, 2024 special meeting minutes. February 27th, 2024 special meeting minutes. Public Works Stormwater Department January 24 report. Finance Department January 2020 report. Building Inspections Department January 2020 report. Fire Department January 2020 report. Planning Department 2024 report. And the Police Department January 2024 report. Does any member of council have any questions regarding to any of these 14 items?
I have a comment to make. I talked with the DPW director about the intersection at Sunset Boulevard South and Main Street. There's a hole that continues to be dug out at the turn on the northeast side, and rocks were put in there. The rocks don't stay in there. He's very much aware of it. He's looking for a contractor to come in and do a more permanent solution to that. So,
Any other member of council?
I had some questions for the Department of Public Works, but they were answered privately by Mr. Graham. And so, it was housekeeping and nothing of import.
I don't have any others.
I thought Matt was over Public Works.
Well, this had to
Yes.
do with part of the dredging program, which Dustin oversees that.
Yeah.
It's
Anything else? Anyone else? All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any member of staff, if you don't have anything else, you're welcome to go home. Thank you. Moving on now, the town administrator report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. First, I'd like to congratulate Katie Atkins for achieving the Certified Municipal Clerk status after successfully completing the IIMC Clerk Certification Institute through the UNC School of Government. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's a 3-year process, and it's a lot of work, and she put the work in, and it shows. I'm pleased to announce that Amy Goodrich has joined our team as the events coordinator, and she is busy organizing the markets in the park and working on the environmental Earth Day, Arbor Day that will be on the 19th. Is that right? Yeah, the 19th of April. And the park markets start Thursday, April 4th. For any of you who do not know, Congressman Rouser has a representative that comes to Town Hall on the first Wednesday of every month to meet with constituents. He will be here this Wednesday, March 6th, from 1 to 3 to meet with anybody who would like to come and meet with him or her. Planning Board, the ETJ representative position on the Planning Board is now vacant. The advertisement soliciting applicants will go out soon. It's out now. Applicants must live outside of town limits, but within the ETJ area. So if you know of anybody who lives outside of town limits who would be interested in that position, and they're not really sure where the ETJ area is, just have them contact Town Hall, and we can help them out. The dredging project. Now they have completed the feeder channel, the Bay Area, canals B, C, and D, and South Jinks Creek. The contractor is now moving into Canal A, and once completed, this will end the dredging project on the island. Everything will be dredged over there that was intended.
They're going to be on time?
Yes.
Okay.
The island actually has until April 30th to be completed. The mainland has to be completed by March 31st, and they are on track as well. On the mainland, dredging is nearing completion in Mary's Creek. They've made one pass and now are just going back to clean up. And they've started at the mouth of Turtle Creek, and all that will be finished by the 31st of March. The park is no longer being used as the offload site. Hopefully it will be restored to its original pretty soon. The offload site has now been moved to off of Pecan, which is on the waterway at the end of Seaside Road. So I will definitely look into, Mr. Arnold, why the truck went through Sea Trail. That is not the intended route coming from the island or the mainland. Sunset Boulevard North to Seaside Road to Old Georgetown Road, or 179 all the way to 4 Mile Road was the intended track. And those trucks are supposed to be lined. So I will definitely look into that. And thank you for bringing that to our attention. And that's all I have.
Any member of council got anything for administrator?
Nothing.
I do not.
I got one question, Lisa. I noticed this was sent out in I guess Freedom of Information Act about the attorney fees.
Yes,
Was
sir.
that correct? $217,000?
Yes, sir. From January of 23.
And that's without
through
any kind of
present.
lawsuits going on where we were tied up for any amount of time?
Oh, no.
We have litigation going on that's been
We
going
don't
on.
have, they're not in court every single day. We don't have anything
No,
like
no,
that going
no,
on.
no.
Does that not seem a little excessive to you guys? $217,000?
What was the dates there?
January.
January 1st, 2023 through April 29th of 24.
So 14 months?
No,
No, not.
January 31st, 2024. April isn't here yet.
He was provided January 1, 23
Yeah.
through February 29,
February, okay.
Okay,
24.
Yeah.
February.
14
Okay.
months.
14 months.
Yeah.
No, it said
Yeah.
April.
I'm sorry if I said April. I
Okay.
apologize.
It's a lot, but we have a lot of legal actions almost everywhere we make a turn.
Would it be more cost effective to have an in-house lawyer full-time? We can pay him. Right. Well, you're not gonna get an in-house lawyer
Mike.
You never know. Full-time.
I'm just asking
That's
the
as
que-
good as Grady is. I
Well,
know, I got you.
just got to ask the question. I
And
mean, a dollar saved is a dollar earned.
I'm happy with the services he provides.
I know
I-
we talked to you.
I
I would-
specifically have no comment because Mike and I just came on here, so I know there was things going on last year because I could hear the whispers, but I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened in
That
closed
just seems
session.
like an awful lot of money to me, guys. Y'all
Yeah.
must not work like I do.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a lot of money.
Well, hold on for just a second. I put in a request that Grady would provide us a list of those things that he's doing that can be publicly reported.
Yeah.
There's a lot that he does
I think we
because
definitely,
of
we definitely need to look at it. I mean, just to see where our money's being
How much-
spent.
but
Accountability.
How much detail is provided with invoices?
I'm not really sure as to the detail that his invoices go into. I can provide them.
yeah.
We'll be by.
All right. Anybody else? Moving on, we've dropped the planning board EDO. On old business, one, rezoning, we took care of that. So now we'll be moving on to the Environment Resource Committee motions.
Don't you have
No,
the
walkways.
J1 was substituted?
I'm sorry.
Walkways.
That's the one y'all added in. Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Go to that one then. The walkways.
Thank you, Mayor. During the August 14th, 23 meeting, the council accepted the bid for 8 walkways to be for repairs and maintenance. And we are in the process of replacing those 8 on the island now. The council awarded the contract for 5 of the walkways, but delayed 3 for because we had applied for grant funding to help with those 3 walkways, and the grant funding was approved, and the state has advised me that we will be getting those contracts to execute this week. So I'm asking the council to award the 3 remaining walkways to B&J Construction of North Carolina LLC in the amount of $813,252.
This is the firm that is doing the other 5,
Yes.
and all 8 were part of the
Yes.
bidding process to get one. So
Correct.
it's just
Right. And just for the record, the total award for the grants is $460,734. So a little more than half of the cost would be coming in grant funds.
And then the rest of the costs are paid out of the
Beach erosion
beach
fund?
erosion fund that we get from the accommodation tax.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's the occupancy tax.
Occupancy tax.
Right.
What is the pleasure of council in regards to these items?
I make a motion that we approve paying for these 3 walkways.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next up will be our Environmental Resource Committee motion. Mr. Stardust, you have this one.
Thank you, sir. The last, in the February meeting, the ERC brought forward to you 2 motions to request direction. And at the February meeting, y'all rescinded that back with some clarity to make on those motions. We're back here tonight with those motions that were cleaned up that are before you tonight. The first one discussed the ERC request approval from the town council to provide input in the technical discussions with town staff, and the town engineering consultant, Moffett Nickel, of changes observed in Jinks Creek and Tubbs Inlet in 2023 and 2024, as they accept the concept and design of a possible dredging project by the Palm Cove HOA. The second one This is regarding the Twin Lakes. They would like to be involved in the Twin Lake conservation efforts as well as research with the scientific community to determine issues and problems and find appropriate solutions. This would be to set up an ERC subcommittee dedicated to Twin Lakes to research availability and requirements for grant specifics to the conservation of the Twin Lakes and investigate grants for research graduate program to study the Twin Lakes and to provide town council and town staff with advice and input to the best practices for lake maintenance and conservation. The recommendation from staff as council is requested to deliberate and approve or deny both any or all the ERC requests.
This guidance provided more specificity and clarity in terms of what the responsibilities are, what they could not do. And so I think it's very much in line with what we have the Environmental Resource Committee set up for.
I think also, I agree with John, and I think also particularly the point about the Twin Lakes in researching, because there's some good talent on the Environmental Resource Committee to be able to research grant opportunities, because that's really what it's going to take to move forward on their preservation and their improvement.
I would agree also. I think they've now become a sort of a research function for town government, and I think that's excellent. And I encourage them to move forward with these two Twin Lakes and the Tubbs Inlet, and I think they could be of great help to town government council here as we move forward with those two projects.
And it really hits home too with a prior topic that we had here tonight.
Absolutely.
Regarding Palm Cove.
Absolutely.
And that HOA dredging project.
Mm-hmm. I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Is that okay? I'll make a motion to move to approve DRC requests.
Do I have a second? All right. Any discussion? Any more discussion? What's the pleasure of council? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Majestic Oaks Park Partif application grant. Go
Thank you,
ahead, Ms.
Mayor.
England.
Last month, the council approved several amenities to be included in the Majestic Oaks Park. Attached is the final Phase 1 map, the project cost, and the basic facts and assurances form. Next, a community meeting will be held to obtain public input regarding the Partif grant application. And the map, the cost actually came down from what we thought last month. Not a whole bunch, but it's $1,058,000 instead of $1,094,000.
Got a question
Oh, go ahead.
on the whole part of grant and our matching fund. How long, if we apply for a part of grant and get approval, how long do we have to wait before, or how long can we wait before we start improvements and use? Is it a 3-year period?
The construction phase has to be completed within 3 years, and we have to put the amenities that are on this map.
And how long does it usually take from application to getting approval for the part? Is it a year, 6 months, 3 months? Guesstimate.
Till September ago.
Mhm.
In September,
Yes.
you will go
September,
to,
they'll
you'll be invited to a
award.
meeting in Raleigh where they award the grant.
Right.
And
And then
then-
we would go out for bid immediately for the engineer. Well, the engineer's doing the design work already, but for the construction company.
And go ahead.
We're all, well, concerned about how much money we're spending on a lot of other things that we didn't expect, okay? Question being is for the next year, how much can we hold back on doing the work in Majestic Oaks? I mean, right now it's being used to hold sand
Mhm.
from dredging, and hold that off for a while until we get into another budget cycle other than the one coming up. So we
And-
can take a look and see where we can shave.
And that's the
would-
council's decision during the budget cycle.
Okay.
A question, when we apply for a Partif grant, a parks grant, is there, I know that there's very specific things we apply for, and we've got a list of amenities or a list of features that we are going to put in that park. So we have to put them in the park, at least to satisfy Partif that we're
Correct.
living up to we can't just take their $500,000 and then not do anything.
Correct.
We have to pony up and do what we said we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that restrict us from applying for other part of grants, let's say a year from now,
No, sir.
for another project?
It does not.
Okay.
And we will also, as soon as we get this one submitted at the 1st of April, we will be going back out for the Division of Coastal Management Public Access, Waterway Access Grant funding also.
Okay.
Now, that's the one we received also last year.
We did.
Okay. That was
150,000.
$150,000? Okay.
So the idea is to apply for as many grants as we can to subsidize our projects.
Absolutely.
There's one thing that I see missing, and I know this is going to be considered as fluff, but we have a live oak tree in the middle of Majestic Oaks Park, which is probably, there are very, very few like that in Brunswick County. I'd like to see, a kiosk that gives some of the history of that tree. I think education should be a big part of a park like this, but not that I'm going to put that in the motion, but just for your edification and put in the back of your mind.
Absolutely.
I'll remind you later, but it's...
And that tree will be preserved 100%.
Otherwise, it won't be live oak.
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve these documents for inclusion in the part of application.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next up, Chapter 95, Beach Regulation Amendments. Go ahead, Mr. Larkin.
I want to thank council. I want to thank our department heads. A lot of people put a lot of input into this, and I think most people are satisfied, at least generally, with it. We do a very good job, have done a good job in the past of confusing the heck out of not only our vacationers but our citizens that live here all year long, and as well as the people that are trying to enforce them. It's difficult to enforce something if there aren't rules that you can explain very clearly to a vacationer as to what is expected. But I want to thank everybody's input on this. Chapter 95 is what we loosely call the beach regulations. This is not our Unified Development Ordinance, but it's another set of codes in our municipal code. And it is called Beach Strand Waterway Channel and Canal Regulations. Town council and our department heads, Lisa, have all been sent these as we've gone through iterations. The only change that I have over what you've been sent is something that today our police chief brought to my attention, and he's exactly right. We were trying to take out references to extraterritorial jurisdictions for enforcement because, as the police chief brought to our attention, he can't enforce our municipal codes within the ETJ. We can't tax them. There's a lot of things we can control what their places look like and the heights and setbacks and lot sizes, but we can't impose things like no wake zones. So if you can bear with me on packet page 94, there is one more reference to extraterritorial jurisdiction that I had missed, and it's on section 95.30, paragraph B as in boy, part II, or I call it part 2, and it says, and it's extraterritorial jurisdiction. And I'd like Katie to remove that, or at least cross it out, because the way this form is set, it has it's the original document. Then we have crossouts and we have additions in red, and I want to make it very clear. I have a question for town staff. As we went through here, we found in the past, we've changed the municipal code for various reasons, and that's one of the reasons it's kind of discombobulated. Different committees, different agendas have been nitpicking at things, and things then didn't read right, and they weren't consistent. They'd say different things, and they would be conflicting. There's been some items on Municode that have gone into the Municode. And there's some that came from the planning board as we rewrote the UDO this past year. We also went into the municipal code. And those were reflected properly in here. I was pleased to see it. But I was sitting down with Chief Clamor, and we could see that the golf cart regulations had not been put in, and they had really been voted on by town council even prior to that.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, how do we monitor, and how do these changes take place?
They are sent in periodically for codification,
Okay.
and they were sent a few months ago, so they should be there now.
Okay.
I haven't looked,
Well,
but we can look tomorrow and make sure.
The ones from town council occurred, and they're in here, but the ones from our police happened prior to that. They just didn't get in. So to me, it was confusing. I guess the point I'm trying to make is there something that we can do, I can do, or planning department can do, or whoever might be the appropriate representative to make sure that it does get done? Because it's not a detail that I think staff can really look at, under a microscope. But
No, it's up to us to make sure that the amendments to the Muni Code get sent to Muni Code and codified.
and there's a charge for this too, because somebody
Yes, there's a charge.
keeps this database for us.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's Civic Plus now instead of Muni Code.
That organization keeps them for most of the communities, right?
Yes.
It's
There's
not,
a lot.
it's not
Mhm.
just our contract with them. We're a
Correct.
subscriber to that service.
Correct.
That does
Well, it's multiple states.
Yeah,
It's multiple
yeah, yeah.
towns. It's,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's amazing.
there's hundreds of towns
Yes.
within North Carolina that are represented in here.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm just making a point that, and I'd be more than willing to babysit it, but I don't know who to call or what to say or who to do.
We'll make sure it gets done, and we'll check with the
All right,
police
I'm
chiefs.
finished with that, but rest of town council, I'm sure, has some comments on Chapter 95.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
I'll make a couple, three.
Go ahead.
If anybody was really paying attention to the last meeting, they'll see that Councilman Lark and myself were getting into a debate over a couple of issues. We have resolved those issues.
In his kitchen.
Is it my kitchen? Yeah, it was.
Any chocolate chip cookies?
The key thing was that wind-driven devices remain in the code where they have been. That's Shibumis for one, for ease of mind. Back in the cabana line, if you will, between the garbage can post, they stay there. But there is a test period being run now through, and we extended it from the end of May. We extended it to July 8th to get a more hectic period of time on the beach to test to see what happens. A test period where citizens can take their wind-driven devices, their Shibumis, and move them and put them anywhere on the beach. The cabanas, the tents,
Not between,
except the restricted area for emergency access. The cabanas, the tents still remain back on the back line, but that's covered in here clearly.
it's more than that, John, to be clear with you can't put anything in the emergency access, but between 3rd and 29th, there can't be any cabanas or wind-driven devices.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And the other side of that is we added a section in there to include boats along with personal watercraft in the no-wake zone area. So our interior waters in the feeder canal, in the finger canals, in the bay area are no-wake zones, according to our codes now. And that means you can't go speeding up and down either with your jet skis or with your boats.
And you're going
That's
to
it.
enforce
I
that.
was wondering who's going to enforce that. Y'all buying a
John
boat for
did.
him to run?
Getting him a jet ski.
We've got a
We
big
stand
chain.
out there
We
with
have a
flag.
chain that we can pull up and catch them.
We have it covered.
Anyway,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I have a question for actually both chiefs. Police chief and fire chief. So we extend this period to July 9th, the
Eighth.
trial period, and it hasn't worked. How are you going to stop people from doing it when they're used to?
Be out there first.
Quite simply, the same way that we did all last year. Every time we see somebody in violation, we approach them and tell them where their wind-driven device needs to go.
Do you foresee that being a problem?
No more so than what it was last year. Because we'd commonly catch them placed outside of that back row. I think that was the highest number that we reported at the end of the year statistics that showed we spent the majority of our time telling people with tents and cabanas and shading devices where they properly needed to place them.
That's true.
But
Thank
we have changed the patrolling for the area. We're putting in 2 code enforcement personnel on the beach that'll be supervised by 1 police officer.
No, one police officer and 1 compliance officer.
And 1 compliance officer.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sure we can lean on the fire department though and their patrollers to help us should the wind-driven devices get out of hand after July 8th if it's not approved.
So the compliance officers are the ones that go and advise people that they are not in the right place and doing the right thing, and
The police officers will too.
the people.
We'll still have 2 people a day advising people of
My understanding
rules.
was last year we had 2,600 or so reports of compliance and no citations. That the compliance officers this year will go and tell the people to move, and if the people don't comply, then he'll call the police officer for assistance, who will issue a citation.
That is correct.
Okay, so
The majority of people comply.
yeah,
They're-
and that's it's only
They're
a small
pretty
number.
nice.
It's only a small number of people that we have to deal with, but there've always
Right.
been a small number of people to deal
Yes, sir.
with,
Mhm.
and that's what gives backbone to the compliance officer.
Right. If
being
they
out there on the beach.
if they don't listen to that compliance officer and they have to call for the police officer, they've been given their warning.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Also, the council needs to take note that our meeting before that is July the 1st.
Yeah.
So y'all need to sort of have an idea what you're gonna do then, give the man a week's warning before you just go out there and say, that's it today. All right?
You'll remind us, won't you?
Yes,
You
sir.
daggone right. I
Okay,
want
thank
to. All right.
Why am I the
everything's
only
good,
one
okay.
sitting on one side and all these 4 guys are on the other side?
I don't know. They
So,
knew my left hand wasn't as long as
So-
my right. The Chapter 95 beach regulations amendments. Lisa, do you want a motion on this since it's been rewrote, so everything else?
Yeah.
What's the pleasure of the council? Go ahead.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to adopt the attached amendments to Chapter 95 Beach Strand Waterway Canal and Canal regulations.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All right.
I'd like to make a
Go ahead,
statement.
Scott. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I'd like to commend Peter on the work he's done. It's great when town council can pick up and take certain actions and help us research, help us change things, help us improve things. So I think Peter did a great job with this, and I'd like to commend him for his efforts and his time. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on now, new business.
And Peter says yay.
UDO Amendment 3, outdoor lighting. Mr. Stardunsky, go ahead, sir.
Sure. So this is a text amendment that started with an embarrassing moment where this was missed. This was missed when we did we redid the UDO. If you look back at the audit notes on some of this, going back to probably 18 months ago, this was supposed to be included into the UDO. It was missed. When I went to look back on the changes that were looked at to be made on this, there were no recommended changes by the planning board to the council. This is just a matter of housekeeping, going through the process of adding this language from our previous UDO, updating it with BEMC comments and our Capefield Council of Governments consultant, Wes McLeod, to add this back in there. It's going over lighting for non-residential, few residential inputs into that, talks about sea turtle lighting, talks about light trespass, brings the lighting plan back into the UDO as well. So I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have with this moving forward.
I want to thank Chad. I had some questions. He met with me earlier today and they were resolved in my head. So thank you, Chad.
And you solved my one question.
Chad, can I ask a question? I didn't get to see you, so on light trespass.
Yes.
Light trespass. To anyone out there, it says all outdoor lighting must be located, angled, shielded, or limited in intensity so as to cast no direct light on any abutting residential used property on adjacent streets or spills in the night sky. During my time here, I've heard about this where people have their emergency lights outside. They leave them on all night. They shine right into other people's houses, cause a lot of concern, cause a distraction, and so on. What would you recommend if this was happening to me? What would you recommend I do? Where do I go to complain? Do I go to you to complain about this?
Dustin,
The code enforcement
the code enforcement officer.
Okay.
Sorry, the code enforcement officer, Dustin Graham.
Okay. That's all I need to know. Thank you very much.
Justin left.
And he'll come out
he
there at
left at the
midnight
proper
to take
time.
care of it, right?
And just,
Oh, he
you
left.
could start by contacting your neighbor and suggesting.
Well, that's the first thing you should
That
do.
would be,
But
yeah.
I've heard people go on and on by after contacting a neighbor and not know what to do. So just code enforcement officers, fine. Thank you. I could have.
Anyone else got anything?
No.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this amendment.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. No.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Stardusky, you skipped number 2. I just want to say before you walk out, I've learned tonight that you resigned. I just want to tell you, I appreciate all that you've done for this town.
Thank you.
I hate to lose a young person that is very knowledgeable on their subjects. I hate that, but I completely understand.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate your service to this town.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you, Chad.
At least we got Pete here to write codes now. He'll take care of that end for you. Moving on, 3, assistance to a firefighters grant, AFG fire hose and nozzles. Go ahead, Mr. Childers.
Good evening. I'm asking permission for me to write and apply for the 2024 FEMA AFG grant. So this year I'd be asking for fire hose and nozzles. So that's a replaceable item. You know, every between 7 and 12 years we need to replace hose and things. So we have some lays on the back of the truck that need replacing. So this is not something that's out of place or anything. This is something that I would factor in budget wise in the next probably 5 years. So it's a good opportunity to do that. Rough estimate's $20,000. That number could fluctuate depending on, number one, shipping cost and taxes, and depending on what I have to do in the grant. So no more than $25,000, and our portion of the grant would be covered under our operating budget at the FD with no changes.
And this is 95%.
95%,
is the grant,
correct.
which is
correct.
So this is
a good ratio.
That's a great grant.
It's a great ratio.
This is by
yes.
far the cheapest thing that's come up on this agenda tonight.
100%.
You know how I am about grants, apply for all,
That's it.
any and all.
Yep.
What's the pleasure of council in regards to this?
I have a motion.
Go ahead, sir.
I move that we direct Chief Childress to write and apply for the Assistance for Firefighter grant for attack hose and nozzles.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on next, Environmental Resource Committee term expiration. The ERC has 2 positions. The terms will be expiring both, I guess, May of 2024. What is the pleasure of council in regards to authorizing the clerk to notify the current members, advertise the position, and schedule interviews with our applicants?
So moved.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
I'll note we have 2 others that are coming towards the end of the year, so hopefully we'll get a whole bunch of people that'll submit this time, so we'll have a good trust to draw on.
All right, moving on next, beach parking proposal discussion. Mr. Hargraves, Mr. Nairn, this is yours. Go with it.
Want me to go?
Yeah. This, what we're seeking tonight is the okay to go ahead to have the engineer look over our plan and make sure that it will work. There is money in this year's budget for engineering costs.
For this project. For this project.
Yeah,
For this
it's just-
project,
It's just
yes.
general.
Okay.
And just let me just go back just a little bit from there. As most people know, last Tuesday we presented to the town council and to the public the beach parking proposal. And then we had two open houses on February 28th and 29th. What we have done, we held both of those, obviously. We had approximately 70 citizens come and attend those events. It was our estimation that we had about 85% of the attendees were from the island, and that makes all the sense in the world because that's going to affect them more. We want to thank all the citizens who came, thank the citizens who made comments. They were well taken. They asked questions, they gave feedback, they seeked clarification on all aspects of the proposals. The one thing that was surprising to people who came here was that they really didn't take any proposal and say, I don't agree with it. What they wanted to know about was about the proposal, clarification on the proposal, questions on the proposals. So it was very, very interesting. We put this all together along with the emails we received, and council before the meeting today received a copy of all that. And so they have a copy of all the feedback from the 2 days of open house, the cards that were filled out during open house, and also all the emails that were received. So it was a great experience. The couple of days, we enjoyed it. A couple of the people, some brought up some very interesting points that were duplicated over and over again. Some people had for us what you might call future considerations, and they would tell us about maybe more walkways across Main Street, for example. A number of people talked about that. So they gave us some ideas on gang mailboxes, for example, for the island. Don't say that loud on the island, but that was something we received a number of times. The use someone came up with, and a number of people talked about the use of Main Street, South Main Street, which we're talking about not being a parking, but being handicap parking, as being sort of a safety valve at times, or for flexibility at times. Those kind of things we took into account. They brought up this time, more and more people brought up the idea of approving and asking us to go forward with paid parking. 2 years ago, remember, we had Auto Connect here. We had a presentation in July of 2022. And then we had 2 days of open houses. And during that time, we received a lot of not positive reviews about paid parking. But all of a sudden, it seems to have changed a little bit for some reason. Now, maybe it was just the right people we were talking to. But we also heard a lot of things, people talking to us about paid parking, and maybe it's time to move forward with that. The last one that a lot of people talked about was the boulevard lot lease, and it should be financed by paid parking. A lot of people talked about it, and not through taxes. So they were some of the keys. So we've given all that feedback now, and so the town council here now has received they had a preview of the proposals that we talked about last Tuesday. They had a preview of that. They gave us comments. They gave us some verbal questions. We've got those all down, so let council know that. They heard the committee presentation. Now they've received all the feedback. And so at this time, town council has in their possession all the key information to date on the parking proposal. What we'd like to do now is talk about the future a little bit. Now we've got to that point. Where does it go from here? And Charlie and I put together a proposal. It's a process, a review process that's in front of council members right now. And our whole idea here was to take 3 steps moving forward that would, over time, bring this plan to fruition, we hope. But it's 3 very important steps. The first one we talk about here is that the council will allow Charlie and I to meet with our in-house engineers, McGill and Associates. They're our town engineering firm. In order to do four things. As we talked about when we did the presentation last Tuesday, we talked about it being an idea and not really, doesn't have a lot of specificity to it of how things are going to be done and not reviewed by anyone but the committee. And so we want to do four things if we're allowed to do this. Number one, just review the proposal with McGill. Number two, determine the scope of the work needed. What will they need to do to make this plan move forward? Determine the stages of the project. By stages, you mean an engineer would say, what goes first, what goes second, what goes third, as far as the proposal is concerned. And as we move forward this thing, if they proposed moving forward this plan, what would be the order of things that had to be done? And last one, the most important thing is give us determination of the cost of these proposals. And so sitting down with them would be another major piece for council to consider moving into approving or not approving the plan. The second thing was concerning the boulevard lot, and that is to ask Lisa, and Charlie and I can help doing this, to facilitate a meeting between our attorney and the attorney of the owner of the boulevard lot to work out an agreement. And this is what we told you last Tuesday. We negotiated a couple times, but we stopped at a point where we felt very strongly that this could happen. But now the agreement has to be worked out between the town and the owner of the boulevard lot. So begin working on that moving forward. And then at the completion of that, as some kind of an agreement, the completion of the work with McGill and Associates, and the information the town council has, then we would sit down as a group, have a special meeting, and the completion of the actions above are done. The council will make the final decision on parking proposal and how it will be funded. So that's our proposal. That's putting it in front of council right now and looking for any questions, support, non-support of that proposal moving forward. No, let me make one other comment. As far as the cost of McGill and Associates, the town has in a fund, which we fund every year with taxes, money set aside for engineering. A lot of projects come up, a lot of issues come up. And so I checked with Lisa, and there is money out of our budget, this budget at this time, to move forward in working with McGill on doing this part of the proposal. So we feel good about that. We don't have to wait till the new year. We have to wait till July in order to do this. We begin this pretty much right away. So, council, we'd like a motion. We'd like this to be approved, but any questions, and just fly.
Any guesstimate on what the initial A would cost from McGill?
No, we haven't contacted McGill yet at all. No,
So
that would be.
so that McGill cost is what you're calling here, determine the proposed cost?
Yes, but
That's the cost for them to do the engineering necessary
That's another.
for the
yes,
project.
yes, that's for
Okay.
them to do the engineering, and obviously from there they would project also probably what would be the cost, for example, of whatever curb stops are
Yeah.
decided on,
Yeah.
with cost of that.
But that would be the numbers that would go into a bid that we would put out, or a request for bids to get somebody to do it.
Yeah, there's, or what would our DPW be able to do moving
Yeah,
forward
yeah,
too?
okay.
Yeah, yes.
So right now you're looking for just
We-
consensus to
move
drive
on.
on.
Move on.
You want a consensus on A only?
A, B, A, B, A and B.
A, B.
A and B. C is when all the council comes together and makes that decision.
Well, my only concern, I have nothing wrong with A and B. My only concern on B is, again, convert those 7 lots into a parking lot costs money, and if it isn't going to be paid parking there, we'll use the money left over from Majestic Oaks.
That's not for us to determine. I don't think so. We do it, but that's not for me to determine. As I made the point earlier that a lot of the feedback we received was regarding the Boulevard lot and the idea of not taking money out of our current budget or next year's budget or the year after's budget, but to go for some kind of paid parking for that. But that's up to council.
So at this point, though, you're looking to have a discussion to work out terms for leasing the lot,
Yes.
not necessarily for doing the modification of the lots to turn them into parking lots.
That would be done by the engineer. That would be done by the engineers. Yes, that's just looking for the agreement.
Yeah. I'd say continue. Go to. Yeah. Do we need to vote on this or just give them a consensus to? Okay.
And
My sense is continue to drive on according to this review process that you've laid out.
my biggest problem is going to always be, where's the money coming from? That's my biggest issue. I think the concepts are great.
Well, this is where you're going to start, the engineer is going to start giving us that information.
Yeah, that's the information. There'll be this is all come out. This will be all information.
Okay.
And the bottom line is determine the proposed cost. And they have to project ahead a little bit proposed cost, but they can do that, and they're much better at it than certainly the committee was. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
So.
Anything you want to say, Pete? I know you do. I feel your feet burning.
I'm going to congratulate Charlie and Mike on the great job they did in putting this together. They've spent hundreds of hours on it, and the committee of 12 citizens that gave huge amount of input. I'm very interested in reading the consolidation of the 70 people that came in, which was just handed to me tonight. There's certainly some things that I want to see tweaked. I'll just call it that.
Yeah, we took those down when you met with us.
Absolutely. But the only thing we're agreeing to spend right now is to have McGill scope out the project for us and provide us a cost estimate as to what it's going to cost to pave the lot and to do all of that other things, which we can then make the decision at that point.
Yeah. And the second thing is the part B there is to sit down, somehow have our attorney, contact their attorney and work out what would be the cost of the lease.
Well, that would be a parallel operation.
Same with that. Yeah, you got to have the cost.
That would be a parallel operation.
Oh, yes, yes.
I wouldn't have a problem going with A and B only because all the other parking studies done in Sunset Beach have stopped too abruptly to do anything with, and we keep kicking the can down the road.
Okay. Heard you say that before.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
We've got a major safety issue on Main Street and Sunset Boulevard, and we need to. We're not talking about adding more spots, but we need to have definition to the spots that exist and don't exist.
That's the committee's conclusion. Yes.
Yeah. You mentioned here, at least in the having a special meeting. You're going to call that later once you have information.
That'll be in C. The special meeting will be C. Once we get the information.
You find out all this other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Then it's time to sit down.
Find out the heart attack material before you go to the next part.
Put it good together.
Do you have a timeline, Mike and Charlie, as to, is this going to take 90 days? Is this going to take 90 years for McGill to be able to come back? So
we would have to contact McGill first and find out when. We're ready to move on this. We're ready to sit down with them, but they're obviously got to free up somebody to do this who's qualified. And so this will be something we would be ready to do. It's like when we did phase 1 of the parking proposal. We took 2 months. We sort of set a time limit of a couple of months. We did it in just a little less than 2 months. And hopefully we can do this, in similar fashion.
But we're likely, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you and Charlie have you have a thought in your head as to the timing of this. Would I be correct in assuming that we're probably not going to greatly impact this summer?
Absolutely, we're not.
Maybe not next summer.
I'm saying that so people will.
Yeah, a lot of people asked us that when the open house and so on. How soon can we do it this year? They said, can you start tomorrow? No, I said, we've got to go through steps after all this work is done. and bringing it forward. And we got to be careful. I really believe this. We got to be very careful when we're talking to the engineer. This has got to be pretty darn thorough, the work they do. We've got to make sure we understand it. We got to make sure we work with them on it. It's got to be thoroughly done by the engineer. That's very important.
Well, and hopefully they're going to come up with ideas that we never thought of.
And that's what
And-
may happen.
Yeah.
And that's,
So does anybody have objections to continuing and go forward? Nope, then, Mr. Mayor, I guess we go forward.
No, carry on then. Next up, disposition of directives. Anybody got anything that needs to go on here?
I don't know whether it's going on here or not, but riding around riding around the island, all the new homes under construction, the driveways are the full width of the lot. I think we're going to have to start enforcing the 20-foot driveway. So want to figure out where that starts. And how do we go about doing it? It doesn't come under
He
the
left.
building.
He left. 'cause
That's
he
your
knew you
code
were
man.
going to ask that question.
That's his question.
Dustin.
Dustin's
Well,
your
we
code
have-
man, so that's who you need to
We
ask.
have a right-of-way discussion on April 1st. If we can tap in after that to talk about the
No, we don't have
UDO.
we don't have a time and date for that. We just have it
that's
as
just, it's not there.
Oh,
We don't have anything there.
coming
So,
up, coming up sometime or other.
Yeah.
It'll be there one day.
Okay, well, in the meantime, let's talk about the UDO and the driveway restrictions or
Well, if you want to put that on the agenda, it can be
Well,
addressed at the
Mike,
next
Mike
one.
is exactly right, because unless the right-of-way gets defined, we are pushing a rope. So,
What Dustin is the code enforcement officer, and he has already begun. Peter's worked with a couple of people, of homeowner on that also. He has begun moving into this. But I would support talking about the right-of-way issue on April 1 and begin talking about it, defining it for our homeowners. Putting a 40-foot stone driveway in front of your front yard in front of your house is not a problem, but it's crossing that right of way, which is the problem as far as driveway width and all of that. So that's
Well,
a lot of
in
things to learn here.
in fairness to the town and us, we just really developed a code enforcement officer. Up until then, it was by complaint that a code enforcement
That's right.
was initiated. We didn't have somebody that was focused on code enforcement. And I've
Actually,
already
we had a
seen-
group that they hired that's been doing it. So we did
Well, but
already
that-
have something.
Yes,
in
but
place.
that's a little different. I know what you're talking about, and that's very true. But that's different.
The
I was
the
dealing with
parking
dilapidated
committee
houses and things like that.
have a Zoom call with a Surf City, and that was called Taking Back the Right-of-Ways, and they have a program, and they have the same problem we do. They haven't paid attention to right-of-ways in 40 years. We haven't paid attention to our right-of-ways in almost that length of time. And they had a plan, and I would suggest to anybody, it would be Dustin or anybody, to get with them, look at their plan, look at their videos they put together, and look how they're handling enforcement. Very interesting.
So my question is, we're putting it on the agenda for the
Gonna be
next
for
meeting.
April- Is it going to be on April 1st?
Okay.
That's all you want.
So the question is who's going to do it and what are they going to do?
Well, I'd like to see staff come back with a plan. I don't know if it's fair to have them do it April 1st.
well,
Yeah, I don't.
Especially with that being April Fool's Day, be easy on yourself, guys.
let's see how long it will take and
Give it to
pick a
staff.
date immediately after.
Well, maybe we sit down with Dustin, at least.
If you got it ready, put it on the agenda.
Maybe
If you
sit down
don't,
with Dustin,
then
see
you
where
don't.
he stands, and see where we go.
That's
Need to
it.
go.
All right, let's move on. Enough grass cutting. Let's go. Public comments. Anybody got any public comments on anything? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name, your address. I'll give you 3 minutes. If it gets to running over, hey, slide it in. You're good.
She may go over.
No, I won't. Good evening, Christine Bauman, 40th Street on the island. First of all, I want to thank the parking committee and the councilmen for all their work on the project. Secondly, I'm hoping that these 70 comments that were given to you guys just a little while ago make it on the website so people can view them. Thirdly, I'd like to share some fun facts for everybody. I understand according to the 2017 CAMA land use plan that is posted on the town website, Sunset Beach has 2.3 miles of oceanfront. Did you know that? Did you know that? With that, back in 2017, we had 574 parking spaces, 414 public, and 160 paid. Now, granted, that's 7 years ago. We actually have more parking than that. You all know that. Interestingly enough, one of those lots is the Sea Trail development lot. Those are town residents. So they have their own little private lot. Plus, we got the Kingfish Bay and the Oyster, what do you call it?
Ocean Ridge.
Ocean
Oyster
Ridge. Ocean Ridge. Ocean Ridge.
Interestingly enough, Ocean Isle Beach, with 4 miles of oceanfront property, only has 537 spots. Like I said before, all of this information is publicly available on the municipality's websites. This begs a larger question. Why does the beach the size of ours have more parking spaces than others that are almost double the size? Can anyone answer that question for me?
We can't
Can't
answer
deliberate.
it. Can't
Okay,
answer.
I've seen you answer them before, so I just have to ask.
Did I send you an answer?
Okay, yes, that's fine. And then, just in general, I know this is going to an engineer. I have huge safety concerns. I'm wondering if the engineer will be looking at driveway line of sight, because when people are backing out of their driveways and there's cars or there's golf carts and there's bicycles and there's pedestrians, driveways have to have line of sight also. And I'm not sure that you guys have ordinance on that. I know you do have that for corners, the 30 feet parking from the corners for line of sight, but people need to have it for their driveways. The other concern I have is this whole discussion of right of way. Did you know that a lot of our utilities are in the right of way? Our sewers, we're lucky to have that back sewer pump station down on the east end of the island. And did you know that the water utility and the county sewer utility come around and they actually check? And we also have vent cleanout pipes. What happens if a vehicle is blocking those utilities? Twice in 1 year, I saw lateral water lines get broken. You can check the records on this.
I'm just going to tell you, got about 30 seconds.
Okay. One got broke by an internet service provider. The other one got broken by a landscaper. What happens? I mean, you got water all over in the streets, and if you got cars parked there, how are they going to access it? So I'm thinking these are some of the engineering questions that might be really good to ask, especially, like I said, the line of sight and then blocking the access to the utilities. Those are really important issues in my book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment for public comment?
Nope, that's it.
Go ahead.
Shorter. So first of all, this is my first town meeting, so you'll have to bear with me and
Welcome.
give me some guidance. My name is Deb King, and I live on Live Oak Drive in Seaside. I heard a gentleman reference earlier today a request for a status update on the hiring of two new positions for the town, the HR position and a town administrator. Just recently, I've also heard information regarding a finance director that has been rehired multiple times. And now tonight we learn of another employee who has given their resignation and is leaving the town. So it causes me to have some concerns about what our employment policies and practices are within the town. And is anybody providing oversight for those overall to see that as we grow, and we all know how much we're growing, that first of all, we have and continue to have the right people in the jobs with the right qualifications to perform the services that we're going to need performed going forward as our lives get more complicated here in Sunset Beach. And I have growing concerns that the citizens of Sunset are not getting enough information or accounting of what is going on with these types of decisions that fall to our council to make. I know I can't ask for a question to be answered here tonight, and I respect that. I just, as a citizen, wish to voice my concerns that we are making certain that we are prepared for the onslaught of issues that are going to come our way with the tremendous amount of growth that we are seeing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Billy Simpson, live in 237 Dogwood in Seaside. I wanted to, first of all, to thank Mr. Corbett for bringing up the problem we're having down here with the main road and Circle Drive where the gravel's being put in. They put gravel in twice and it gets spun out by trucks and we're back to the same old thing. I spoke to the Public Works man, Matt, I'm not sure of his actual position, and he said he's going to look for contracts to possibly widen that right there. So thank you for bringing that up. And also, Mr. Corbett, Mr. Larkin, thank you for clarifying the beach cabana Shibumi issues, because I was very confused as to where that actually was and when it was going to be available. Third thing I wanted to say right quick, Mr. Mayor, thank you for bringing up the cost of our lawyer. It seems to me that $15,000 a month is quite a bit. I don't know what his itemized list is. I know a lot of it is confidential, but that does seem to me quite a lot of money. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Public comment?
Let's do that. I'm getting hungry.
You have to take your hands out of your pocket.
What? Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Richard Dysinger, 704 Fairway Drive. I was going to speak about this lawyer issue, but one of the perspectives that we have to have here is Sunset Beach is really about a $10 to $12 million company. And as someone that's been a senior manager at $10 to $12 million companies, $186,000 a year for a first-rate attorney is not a lot of money compared to many of the problems that you will avoid by having competent counsel readily available to raise issues and make sure that the company does not incur additional costs because for some reason they fall outside of the guidelines in a way that you may not expect. There are things that can come up that will surprise you if you don't have competent advice. So yes, it's a lot of money, but my sense is that to be penny wise and pound foolish in something like this will ultimately cost you more in the long run. And God help me, I'm protecting lawyers.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Anyone else?
2% of our budget. Sean Arnold.
I'm Sean Arnold, the same Sean Arnold that spoke earlier, in case you forgot. Hey, listen, there's a couple concerns that I want to bring up, and it kind of looks like it's a situation of talking out of both sides of our mouth. And if you look back in the minutes from last month, Mr. Corbett brought up his concern for the preservation of trees on Mrs. McLand's property. And I appreciate you doing that. That's very critical. But I have to ask, where is your concern for all the trees that were clear cut on the lots that we are now going to use for the beach parking? It seems like we've talked out of both sides of our mouth, that we're going to do it over here, but we can't do it over here. Something's wrong with that image. I'm just letting you know. All right. And it's awful funny that the people that own those lots, how did they know to go ahead and clear them all off at one time? That's all that's owned by Sunset Beach Twin Lakes, which we all know is the Gores. All right. Simple as that. They own those lots next to Sloan Realty. They also own the 4 lots that back up to the Intercoastal Waterway that were cleared off. Is that going to be the future paid parking location next year or the following year? This looks very suspicious from the taxpayer's standpoint. But that's just one example. A couple of months ago, or say a few months ago, our police chief got up and spoke about needing more police officers. Tara Nichols got up and said, in order for us to have more police officers, we're going to have to raise taxes. But how is it we're not raising taxes when we have an attorney for $218,000 and our budget is $150,000? I can tell you right now, Holden Beach's attorney fees yearly is $50,000. I've already looked it up online. They've told me that. All right. But we got $218,000. We got to hire an HR director, maybe another $100,000. We got to hire a mentor for Miss Anglin. It is what it is. Another $70,000. We have an extra public works employee we hired back in the warm weather. We've got an events coordinator. And who else knows what else we're going to hire? That's over $500,000 that we're going to spend, but not raise taxes. But we told the police chief he can't hire because we're going to have to raise taxes. Guys, you got your priorities in the wrong place. I'm sorry. Don't be offended by what I say to you. I'm here for business. This is nothing personal. But you're going to have to take a hard look at how you're running this ship in order to get this thing done right. That's all I got to say to you.
Anyone else? Public comments?
Get up here to this microphone. I'm Jane Simpson. I live at 237 Dogwood Drive. I've got questions, and I know they're not going to get answered, but they're questions I'm putting to you.
Write them down.
Okay. Start writing. My question to the council is, why did the town hire or create a human resources position? Has there never, ever been one before? And did the town administrator oversee personnel as part of her duties, and there have been discrepancies with that too? I want to know. My second question is, the town administrator received a written warning, now rescinded, for her request of the police department. Why again are our tax dollars being spent for a temporary second position to oversee or babysit the administrator in her performance of duties? This all raises a red flag to me. Being a retired county government employee, I understand 3 strikes and you're out. But if this is the first written warning, what justifies hiring 2 positions with our tax dollars because of it? Just food for thought. And another thing, one more thing. If the town is considering leasing lots for parking, who is paying for this and for the work to get the lots leveled and ready for parking? Isn't using taxpayers' money for this another way for residents to incur parking costs when council continues to claim they're not in favor of town taxpayers paying for parking? That's all I have. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else for public comment? All right, you got anything? Anyone else? All right, if not, council have anything else? Not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
John, you got any discussion?
Nothing.
Pete, you got any discussion?
I'm done.
Charlie's gone.
I'm through.
All right. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
It's got to have some batteries in it.